chop it up and make you feel the groove. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
All right, here we are. It is music theory time. Here we go. Giddy up. You survived lesson 1. Here's lesson 2. And today we're talking about something pretty important. Notes. Musical notes. All right. So our objectives today are to learn what a musical note is, which might seem super basic. It is, but also we're going to go pretty deep. Sort of deep. Then number 2, develop understanding of the names of notes. How we call these things in Western music. Number 3, comprehend accidentals and enharmonic equivalence. What? Yeah, you're going to learn. And number 4, grasp concept of pitch class. All right, diving right in. What is a note? It is, not as simple as you may think. In music, a note is a symbol denoting a musical sound. Okay, so over here, we have a note. This is what a note looks like. You've seen this before. You may not know what it means or what note this is. This stuff, you're like, what is that stuff? I have no idea what that stuff is, but you're going to learn what that stuff is. You're going to get it. We'll talk about this later today. We're talking about notes, right? And it can mean a couple things. It can be talking about what note it is. Like if the circle or dot is super high, it's a high sounding note. It's a high sounding pitch. If it's very low, then it's a low sounding pitch. That's the vertical aspect, right? And then what the note looks like helps you understand something called duration, like how long the note is. So like these open note heads, these kind of empty circle note heads are a half note, and you hold that out for twice as long as these that are filled in. Okay, so when you talk about a note, it could be talking about the pitch, like how high or how low it sounds, and it can also be talking about the duration, like is it a half note, a quarter note, whole note, 30-second note, all of which we're going to cover. Not today. Today we're talking about pitch specifically. Okay, notes are the building blocks of music. It is how, we take those little notes, those single pitches, which might be like, here's a note, right? And then here's a note, and we put them together. Maybe we add another note and another note. And now we have a chord. We build those up. So notes are the building blocks, right? And those notes become chords, and chords become progressions, and chord progressions become musical phrases, and musical phrases become pieces of music. Maybe it's a song or something more dignified. I don't know. We build things with those. Okay, the term note can be used in both a generic way and in a specific way. So let me give you a couple examples. Generically, you might say, the piece Happy Birthday to You begins with 2 notes having the same pitch. So, but you heard at the beginning, the 2 notes having the same pitch. That's kind of speaking about notes in a generic way. But you can also be more specific, where you say something like, the piece begins with 2 repetitions of the same note. The first 2 notes were the same note. That's very specific. Okay, how do we name these things? How do we name these things as I set my guitar down? Well, first we just need to review quickly, right? In our last lesson, we talked about the chromatic scale, or the 12-tone scale, being a musical scale with 12 pitches, each a semitone above or below its adjacent pitches, right? So it's like 12 notes in a row before you get to the same note again, right? So let's say you start on A, you'd go up 12 notes before you get to the higher version of A, Okay. And we talked about that. If you need to review, go back to lesson 1. But there are 12 notes before you repeat the same note, right? 12 notes, repeat the same note. We use, how do we name notes? We use the first 7 letters of the alphabet, A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. 7, but we have 12 pitches. We have a problem. 12 minus 7 is 5. So out of 12 notes, 5 don't have a name. Accidentals. Here we go. The most common accidentals, that's the word for what these are flats, naturals, and sharps. Now, flats are this first measure example here, and we haven't gone over this yet, but I want you to learn this first. So you could just take my word for it. This note is an A, okay? And if you have a flat in front of it, a flat basically means you lower it 1 semitone. So, on guitar, if I have an A right here, I go down 1/2 step. That's 1 semitone. That would be an A flat. That A particular is up here, though. It's a higher A. And then you go down to A flat to that. That is an A flat. So I played a note right here on the string. I hope you can see my cursor on my mouse. I played this little note, and then an A flat would be here, 1 semitone below. On a piano, it is right here. On a piano, this is A right here. And so going down 1 semitone to A flat. Oh, I went to the wrong slide. My goodness. Okay, here we go. So most common flats, naturals, and sharps. Okay, so we're talking about this first one, A flat. And A flat, here's an A. Take my word for it if you don't already know that. And A flat would be 1 semitone below. You'd play this note. Okay? If you're on guitar, again, here's an A. You can take my word for it. A flat would be right here. Okay? This is like the headstock of the guitar. And then over here is like the body, right? So this way it's sounding lower, and this way it's sounding higher. All right, over here we have a natural sign. It looks like a lightning bolt. So this stands for natural. It means just the note, not raised or lowered. And you would wonder, why do you need that? Isn't that just kind of redundant? Well, because in music, sometimes this gets used. And then people have to be like, okay, no, but I want it to be back to this. Or sometimes, which we're going to cover later, a song might already have a bunch of these in it. Like there's a thing called a key signature, which we're going to cover. But at the beginning of the song, they'll tell you, hey, you're going to have like 4 flats. These 4 notes are always going to be flat. We're going to cover that. And then let's say you want one of those notes that in that song is supposed to be flat, but you're like, no, I want it to be a natural. That's when you would use this natural sign. Okay. Over here we have a sharp, which just means raising any note a semitone. So this is still an A, right? And this is a sharp A. So here's A on piano, and a sharp A, you go up 1 semitone. So this is an A sharp. Okay? On guitar, here's that A again. And if you go up 1 semitone, you got that. Okay. So that is the most common accidentals. Okay. There's also this thing called double accidentals, which I just should mention because we're talking about accidentals, but it's not like, it doesn't happen like all very often. But anyway, this is what it is. If we had over here on our most common natural, we had a flat here and we had a sharp here. This is down 1 semitone or sounding lower 1 semitone. This is sounding higher 1 semitone or raised 1 semitone. Well, a double accidental is 2 semitones or a whole note, or rather a whole tone, or 2 semitones down. So like, let's say I have A double flat. A double flat would be not here. Here's A flat, and here's a double flat. Now, for you piano players or out there, or people that understand what notes are on a keyboard, this is an A and this is a G, right? Normally, but sometimes in music, you might call that an A double flat, believe it or not. And that's what that means. A double flat just means lowered 2 semitones, 2 half steps, or a whole tone. Okay, this guy over here is a double sharp. And it's the exact opposite of this guy. A double sharp is just up 2 semitones. So if we have A right here, go up 2 semitones, we have A double sharp. Now, for you piano players out there that already know a keyboard very well, you know, oh, this is a B, this is an A, and this is a B. Well, yeah, this is a B, but we can also call it an A double sharp. Okay, so here's A double sharp. Okay. Here is an example in music where what I talked about, there's this thing called a key signature, which we'll cover more later. But this is a piece of piano music where the top line is played by the right hand, the bottom line is played by your left hand. And over here at the beginning, the composer is saying, Freddie, Frederick Chopin and me are on a first name, just so you know. So Frederico, my bud, said, hey, these 4 notes are going to be sharp in the whole song. Just be aware these are going to be sharp, okay? So this is kind of an advanced idea, but some of you will benefit from it. Over here, this G is sharp. This is a G sharp. And over here, this is a sharp on a G space saying all the G's are supposed to be sharp. So I have G sharp here, and a half step below G sharp would be G, right? But Chopin wants it to look as though you're going down, right? So he used an F double sharp instead of a G, because if he didn't do that, it would look like it was like G sharp. He could have used a natural sign right here and put a G, and then put another sharp sign here on this G sharp. But instead, he elected to use a double sharp. So there's an example of a double sharp. Okay, so courtesy accidentals. This is the most polite accidental. It really is. Just like I talked about in the previous example, sometimes you'll have an accidental in your music. Not at the beginning, but like in the middle of your song. You'll have an accidental saying, hey, this is flat. Sometimes they want you to go back to the original note. So they put the natural sign in parentheses. Now, if this note was in this measure, you wouldn't need the parentheses. You would just need the natural sign because they're in the same measure. But when you get to a new measure of music, any accidentals that you had go away. So this is saying, yeah, any A's in this measure of music is going to be flat. And if you had another A like right here, it would also be flat unless you threw a natural sign in front of it. Now, when you go to a new measure, all the flats disappear. So you don't need a natural sign. But guess what? Sometimes the composer is like, you know what? Or the arranger, or the transcriber is super nice. And they're like, look, I want you to know I care about you. And I don't want you to be confused and accidentally play an A flat here. So I'm going to remind you that we have a new measure because we have this bar line here. So we have a new measure, and just don't forget, okay? Don't forget that this is natural. All right, good talk. Now, I'm not going to go into this today, but there's this thing called microtonal music. So in Western music, we generally have these 12 notes, and they're a half step apart. Well, microtonal would be taking those and even chopping them into smaller half steps, right? So like if I was on a guitar and I wanted to do microtonal music, I would really only have a couple options. I can add a fret so that I have like in between notes. That would cost a lot of money. Or I might even just bend a note. So it's not a full half step, like it might just be a quarter step. Like that. So we're not going here today because you're not going to be playing music at this level yet that requires you to read that. But just be aware that that's a thing. From left to right here, we have a half flat. This has been adopted by a lot of people who write microtonal music. So here we have a half flat. Here we have a flat and a half. Whew. Flat and a half. Here we have a half sharp, and here we have a sharp and a half. Giddy up. Okay. And that's the last time we'll ever talk about that. Next thing, what is enharmonic equivalence? And I'm going to take a sip of my iced coffee because I need the energy. Clear my throat a little bit. All right. What is enharmonic equivalence? Lots of stuff here. Enharmonic equivalence is when a note can have more than one name. Very basically, right? So you're going to take my word for it here, right? This is an A. Down here in the bottom left part of the screen. This is an A. And this is a B. Okay? This note above it can either be called A sharp or it could be called B flat. Remember how we said 12 notes? Remember how we said 12 notes? And we said there was 7, the first 7 letters of the alphabet, and then we said, oh, but what about the other 5? Well, on a piano, this is how it's broken down. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those are just the letters of the alphabet. C, starting here on C, C, D, E, F, G, and then it just starts over A, B. And then if we had another note right here, it would be C, right? So here's the 7 letter names, and then here are the in-between notes. And they have a couple names. But don't be fooled. A lot of people think these white keys only have one name. They very often have a couple names. Okay, so we'll cover that. So here is C and a D. So right here in between, you could call this C sharp, and in some songs, it's going to be called a C sharp. In some songs, they're going to call it a D flat. It depends on the song and the piece of music that you're doing. Okay, that's why it has 2 names. So up here, you have this C note, right? Now this C note can be right here, right? An enharmonic equivalent to the C note is a B sharp or a D double flat. Like if you took this D and went a double flat, this C note has 3 names. It could be called. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild? So I'm not going to belabor this point, but if this is F, this could also be called E sharp, right? Because here you have an E. Here you have an F. You could call this, you can call this E sharp. You could call this E note F flat. Okay? If you want like a really in-depth tutorial on this, you can pause the video and go to musicnotation.org tutorials. Pretty amazing. I also stole these images from here, so give them some love because they actually did the hard work of creating these graphics. Okay? So what is pitch class? This is music production and music theory class, but what is pitch class? Well, a class of pitches, right? In music theory, a pitch class is all pitches related to each other by octave, enharmonic equivalence, or both. Okay, so here we have a graphic of what I was explaining moments ago, where you have, the enharmonic equivalence here. I didn't put the enharmonic equivalent images here, but what's cool about this is you can see this C looks exactly like this C, but this one's going to sound like the next higher version of C, right? So like if I had maybe this C right here sounds like this. And then like this C over here sounds like this. And then this C over here sounds like this. Oh, lost my page. All right. So all of those C's are in the same pitch class. They're all the same, right? So sometimes you'll speak generically like that. Like someone will be like, hey, I got to tune my guitar. Give me an E, right? And that's not very specific. Like that's not saying, play this E or play this E. It's just saying, like, give me the note from the pitch class. And someone might, give you this note and your ear has to turn it into this note. Stuff like that. But you can kind of hear it that those two notes have a similarity. If I were to take like two E's, here's an E and here's an E. There's a similarity between them. If I take just one of them and move it up a semitone, I'm going to play an E and an E sharp, which you've learned today is F. But I'm going to play an E and an E sharp. Oof. That is rough. That is real rough. Flat 9 for you advanced kids out there. Right? It sounds awful. There's nothing similar about those things. But this, there's something samey about it. Right? It's kind of like the same color. A lot of times we refer to pitch classes by color. Some people see colors in reference to pitches. Isn't that amazing? They're called synesthesians. There's a name for it. Okay, so did we hit all of our objectives here? Did we learn what a musical note was? I hope so. We also tried to develop an understanding of names of notes. Cool. I think we did that. We're trying to comprehend accidentals and enharmonic equivalence. I think we got there, guys. And then, did we grasp the concept of pitch class? I think so. It's just saying like all the A's, right? But all the A's are also all the G double sharps. It's the same pitch. It's just, in some songs you're going to call it one thing, in other songs you're going to call it another thing. And you're going to learn why later in a future lesson. But that is the end. That's the end. Good job, guys.